From Scripps News, judge denies California's request to immediately block Trump's use of the National Guard. This is a big win for Donald Trump. They say Governor Newsom filed the emergency request on Tuesday, alleging that Trump was turning the U.S. military against American citizens. The request sought to block the Trump admin from expanding the role of deployed troops in L.A., saying new orders could allow National Guard members to assist with immigration raids by securing perimeters and streets.
Yes.
But U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer declined to grant the motion, ordering instead that Trump, Pete Hegseth, and the Department of Defense have 24 hours to respond to the governor's filing. The judge has also scheduled a hearing on the case for Thursday, June 12th. So good news for now. Case is still ongoing, but I think Trump has every right to take command of the National Guard. Karen Bass is saying that Trump should end all immigration enforcement.
Wasn't that totally insane? She was saying that Trump should just stop enforcing federal law in California because she doesn't personally like it. This is from the mayor who was literally in Ghana as LA burned in January, and then she blamed everybody else in her government instead of herself for what went down, for like the thousands of homes burned. They've hardly gotten any permits for those people to rebuild their homes. It's absolutely a total disaster still. And now she thinks that the best thing to do is create more disaster. She also is one of the people who was spreading the falsehood that an ICE raid was at Home Depot on Friday.
That's what set this whole thing off.
Which actually did not happen. And the people who said that that happened were spokespeople from this organization, CHIRLA, which is like a Coalition for Humane Immigration, something. And they were the ones who on Friday held a press conference and said that there'd been a raid at Home Depot that then got repeated and repeated and repeated. In fact, at Post Millennial, we were reporting on, this whole thing. And we were looking at the Times, and we were arguing about it. We were like, well, what happened? Was there a raid at Home Depot? The Times said there was a raid at Home Depot. These activists said there was a raid at Home Depot. Was there? And then Bill Malugin at Fox was saying there was no raid at Home Depot. DHS said there was no raid at Home Depot. There was just an ICE, they were like nearby doing something else. And this whole thing got sparked off. Karen Bass then lied about it. The activists lied about it. And it turns out that activist group, CHIRLA, not only were they backed by Kamala Harris, who held her first event as senator-elect in 2016 at like one of their events, but also they were funded by the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, $500,000 from the Homeland Security over 2 years.
Yeah, Natalie Winters was reporting that. And then she was reporting that on X. She's at War Room. Yeah. And so I started digging into that. And yeah, that's true. This is who was funding. The Biden administration is literally somehow continuing to fund the activist groups.
Gold bars off the Titanic.
Yeah, activist groups.
We thought it was just on the
EPA
stuff. It's much more broad than that.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. And so they were not only opening the borders, creating semi-legal pathways for entry, all of the parolee programs, extending temporary protected.
Semi-legal, you mean illegal.
No, because they created these things. So instead of remain in Mexico, they said you can be paroled into the United States, which they never should have done. They should have stuck with remain in Mexico. They prioritized one of Kamala Harris's big things that she did as in her temporary stint as border czar before her office said that she wasn't responsible for the border was she got the Biden administration to sign an executive order prioritizing LGBTQIA plus people for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border, right? I mean, another thing that they did was they said that any unaccompanied minor would be admitted to the U.S. no questions asked, which is like, hey, human traffickers, steal the children and bring them here.
These were powers that the executive office did have, though.
Right.
So
like,
semi-legal.
For example, the CBP One app was actually created under the Trump administration to allow boats carrying perishable goods to the United States to create appointments to go to ports and say, like, here's all our bananas or whatever. And the Biden administration changed it and reprioritized it for immigrants to say, oh, we're going to make an appointment, surrender ourselves at a point of entry. We are illegal immigrants. You will parole us into the United States, and then we will stay there until a court hearing. And then they also went around summarily dismissing court cases. They dismissed hundreds of thousands of court cases.
Second-class citizens.
Yes, which was their goal. And then they could, make all these people have low-class jobs and boost congressional representation for those districts. Meanwhile, anyway.
We just have a massive rumor. It's got 1.3 million views. I'm meme saying that a photo surfaced of the man who who was in the truck delivering the face masks and shields, and that he is reportedly affiliated with the Teamsters.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I
Teamsters
heard.
chapter.
Is that for real?
I heard.
It's a report and rumor circulating on X.
Yeah, I heard also
There's
there was
photos.
something that I heard this morning. I don't remember what podcast it was. It might have been on Two Way from that Mark Halperin's new podcast with Sean Spicer. But I think they might have been talking about. Either way, I'm not sure where I heard it, but they were talking about unions are actually involved with trying to organize or with the groups that are organizing the protests here.
But primarily Service International Employees Union.
I am flabbergasted by this tweet I just saw from ABC News 7. It says there are more U.S. troops in L.A. than in Iraq and Syria.
That's awesome.
My only respond is, okay.
Yeah.
So much better.
What?
Thank you.
We
Donald.
don't want them over there.
They're in America. And
Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah, wow. This is crazy. I mean, someone's funding this stuff. Someone's providing these weapons.
Did you say that it was the Teamsters?
That's what I
you
said.
said it was the Teamsters.
The rumor says
SEIU.
he's
This one rumor was a Teamster.
the guy who was behind the wheel of a truck where they were giving out shields and masks, according to a viral tweet, is a member of a local Teamsters chapter.
You know, back to Cheerla, by the way, more government funding. So in their last 990, that's the form that nonprofit organizations submit to the federal government. They went from $12 million in government grants to $33 million, I think the number was, in their last reporting period. Now, it turns out, it seems, that a lot of this money is from the state of California coming to them. It's Cheerla. It's Campaign for Humane Immigrant Rights, L.A., right? So
That's what it
the
is,
government
LA.
money's coming in, and a lot of it's from California. So in effect, California is funding these riots on themselves that they're complaining about Donald Trump overreacting to, that they're doing nothing about, that they know they need to do something about, and say they want to do it.
You're talking about the state of California is paying for these things? Or are you talking about
In
donations?
effect, I posted a meme on my ex. It was a picture of the people on that bridge throwing rocks down on those police cars, and it said "My government" by the police cars, and then somehow also "My government."
Yeah.
I mean, this is really the absurd thing that's taking place. The NGO culture is so freaking corrupt.
Yeah.
Like this is really a UN corrupt game, these NGOs. We didn't do NGO. We didn't even call nonprofit organizations NGOs in this country until 20, 30 years ago. USAID. I mean, this is really a Bush administration thing almost, frankly. But the NGOs were corrupt institutions receiving money from the UN for a long period of time. And now they're corrupt institutions receiving our government money, radically twisting everything. I mean, this is one of the big stories of this iteration of Donald Trump and this administration, the corruption of government, and in coordination with Open Societies Foundation, this communist CCP billionaire that's also funding these, whose name I'm forgetting. These guys are working in coordination with all this NGO stuff to cause this crap.
Yeah.
And remember, George Soros makes money on chaos. That it's a hedge fund. Like, you need to have inside information to really short the market or go long on the market. And that's how he cornered the British pound so many years ago. Scott Bessent helped him do that, by the way. But that's another issue that kind of lingers at the bottom of everything you're seeing going on right now, is that these guys have other interests than just politics.
Yeah.
Now, they want to affect the politics. Soros is a socialist, there's no doubt. This other guy's a communist, actually. But they want to affect the politics, but they also want to make money off of it. It's one of the hugest scams that's happened throughout world history, but we're just seeing a big iteration of it again these days.
I think that that's one of the benefits of the internet and everything being online and everyone's lives being online, is these kind of organizations were less susceptible to the sunlight. They could, it was much easier for them to hide and to work behind the scenes with using just networking and using the connections that they had in governments and stuff. And nowadays, anyone that goes on the internet and decides that they want to look into what's the organization that's doing this or doing that, or how did is this information that I'm seeing from people on the ground, is it true? They can do all the they can at least do some searching to see if there's actual substance to it. So it's much more difficult for people that are looking to to do subversive actions in the U.S., it's much harder to hide it, I think.
All because Elon Musk bought X and got Donald Trump elected, right?
Yeah. I mean, legitimately.
Seriously, that's
without,
big.
Without X, without this platform.
Oh, we would be totally closed down.
Yeah.
I can't listen. I was initially involved with these Mario Nafal spaces back in 2022 and 2023. I was helping organize them. I was getting a lot of people on there. Actually, his early big guests were mostly ones that I was getting, and I broke with him a long time ago. But the point is that when we were doing those things, it was exploding. It was you had this sense in the population that, wow, finally, I can hear something that's real. I remember being on X before that, and it was just a waste of freaking time. I was on the radio in Denver for 4 years, from 2006 to 2010. I had grown my following to about 15, 16,000 at the time. And then while I was unengaged working on Capitol Hill and stuff, it dropped down to 4,000. I couldn't do anything. Everything I would try, they'd shut it down.
Yep.
Suddenly, an explosion of information. I think people still are remembering that viscerally right now, and they're going after this information. But you're so correct about, we finally are able to put a spotlight on this stuff in a way. Like, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, George Soros is buying it. And by the way, these LA riots, I can't find any evidence of George Soros money. It's this it's this Neville Bingham guy, right? But Soros benefits from it. So
we've got, we'll jump to this story here. We've got video out of Chicago as these immigration protests light up, and people aren't having it. A car actually navigates, driving through the protest. It appears everybody's fine, but people are saying no. Look at this.
There's the red car that's coming in, and you'll see people trying to get out of the way, others standing in front, and others beating the car, trying to slow it down or stop it. And then you'll see the officer right there as it passed. There, we'll show you here. There's the red car that's coming in, and you'll see people trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, people are no longer going to wait around. After what we saw with these with the BLM riots in the Summer of Love,
and they pulled people out of their
notably,
cars.
well, the woman, it was a man. I think it was a man or woman. I can't remember who got shot in Provo, Utah.
Yeah.
So driving on the street, minding your own business, someone runs up to your car and just shoots you. So now people aren't stopping.
No, I don't know why you would. They're not stopping for the climate people anymore either. Remember?
Yeah, and well, I guess I got to say, if you live in a place like Chicago, you're going to prison.
Well, this is kind of a modification of the, if you're going to take on the king, you better kill him type thing. They shot their wad in 2020 and for some time thereafter. And now we have the information openly there, and people are just definitely not going to put up with it anymore. And when it gets out of hand in ways like it did in 2020, it's still not going to convince them to give up anymore.
Well, so we have this from Newsweek. LA may be hit with a curfew. This story is just breaking in the past hour. Mayor Bass says that they may launch a curfew tonight with everything getting as crazy as it is. So Donald Trump's support right now in immigration. CNN had this hilarious bit. Harry Ensign, man, he's their poll guy. He's a living meme now, because every week at least, he's going, look at the polls. People love Donald Trump. We can't believe these numbers. And it's like, okay,
he's shocked every
time that people support what Trump is doing right now. And I say, get out there, National Guard. Send in the Marines where necessary. Arrest all these people. They should be charged not just with rioting. There are people on the streets screaming for a foreign nation. Charge them with sedition, and let's be done with this. Let's. If you come in now and say we will enforce the law as it is written, and that means if you're cheering for a foreign nation, fighting the federal government and our military for foreign nationals, sedition, we lock you up.
I don't see why this is controversial at all. This is stuff that 20 years ago Democrats would have agreed with.
Yeah, but Democrats have gone so far to the left that all of us ended up being conservative.
Well, we're at a time, though, too, where you can press something that years ago would have seemed incredibly radical, and now people are so fed up with the situation they'd accept it. I mean, I'm in 100% agreement.
So what do you think is or what do you actually, both of you, Libby, what do you think is what do you think would be an action too far that would actually turn most of America against Donald Trump? Because right now he's still at 55%. The people want to see roundups, not just deportations, but people getting rounded up, illegals getting rounded up, not just the criminals. Mm-hmm. This is something that's been pulled over and over, and people are like, yes, round up the illegals, not just
Right.
the criminals, round up the illegals
part
and
of it-
send them home. What do you think would be too much for the American people?
Well, I think if you actually did start seeing like children being ripped out of parents' arms, but of course that's what Democrats are driving all of this towards. That's what they want to have happen, right? I mean, you have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states where the law says that local law enforcement cannot help federal law enforcement. So what does that mean? What that means is that federal law enforcement, right, they have to go out into the community instead. So you have somebody who is a criminal illegal immigrant, they get detained locally for whatever crime they did. So when they get released, when it's time for them to like get released into the community or whatever, local law enforcement does not call federal law enforcement to say, come get your guy here.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.